Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
I am sick.
may I have your attention?
So that's the only non-name grant.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get started. My phones are literally going off in my pocket. I am almost positive that's the sign to get out of the convention center. They asked us not to have a full drum line, but we had a full band instead. So anyway, thank you, Bowie. At this, yeah, woo! Couple of housekeeping rules. We are going to have very substantive and strategic dialogues with very key stakeholders, starting off with our HBCU presidents. Then again at 12, we'll reconvene for a lunch buffet, but also we'll hear from some of our corporate executives, so definitely stick around and stay for that. We're going to have these important dialogues, but this is of CBCF, our HBCU homecoming, so we do want to have our HBCU pride and our HBCU energy running throughout these conversations. At this time, I want to introduce two people and organizations that have made this entire 3-day National HBCU Braintrust possible. I'm going to introduce Sandra Zadu of Wells Fargo. And if she is here, Stephanie Rodriguez of Anita B. And thank you to you both, along with American Airlines, for powering this Braintrust.
Good morning, family.
Good morning.
Welcome to day 2 of the National HBCU Braintrust. My name is Sandra Zadu. I'm Senior Vice President of Government Relations at Wells Fargo. We are proud to be the marquee sponsor of the entire Braintrust, along with AnitaB.org and American Airlines. Now, I am not an HBCU alum. I went to Duke University. Save your booze for later. But my mother is a proud Morgan State Bear who's celebrating her 55th reunion this year. And I have the honor of introducing Dr. Anita Bro, who is the first female president of Bowie State University.
Down the street.
Which is my hometown, by the way. But before I do that, can we give one last shout out to Team Adams, to Rhonda Fox, to Catherine Stewart, to Jocelyn Boaz, They've been a phenomenal leader. Of course, Dr. Alma Adams is actually voting on the floor. Without her vision, leadership, and tenacity, we would not be here. So thank you, Dr. Bro.
You're very spry, too. I saw that leap off of the stage. And give him a round of applause for that. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Aminta Bro, and I'm the very proud 10th president of Bowie State University. How about our band? We are so very, go Bulldogs, that's right. We are very proud of our students, and we're very, very pleased that all of you are here today for this outstanding panel that is so critical for today's preparation of our students. And we also need to ensure that we're working comprehensively around this topic. We were, before I move on, I do want to acknowledge Congresswoman Adams. She is just a wonderful, wonderful ambassador for our HBCUs, has been leading the way for a long time in a bipartisan way to garner support for our HBCUs. She could not be here today because she's taking a vote, but please let's give her a big rousing round of applause. Today's topic, and I do have the distinguished honor of introducing today's topic and our panelists of presidents and chancellors and our moderator for this program. And the topic is the power and potential of Black innovation. It is a critical topic for us to explore, to discuss, and come together around some action items for our HBCUs to move forward. This is something that is near and dear to my heart at Bowie State University as we can continue to thrive and grow our entrepreneurship on the campus. We have a growing number of students who are coming to us wanting to start new businesses, create new products, but they need that venture capital to get them on their way. And so seeing you all here today is so meaningful for this conversation. At Bowie State University, we will be building a new entrepreneurship living learning community to increase the attention that we need on this topic and ensure that we're bringing more people to our campus to provide that venture capital. But each one of our HBCUs needs your support in this endeavor. To get the conversation started, let me give you a few facts here. Despite the fact that there are over 5,300 collegiate institutions across the nation, nearly 40% of venture capital goes to graduates of just two schools, Harvard and Stanford. This has a disproportionate impact on HBCUs and their graduates. This year's Braintrust is asking the question, how can we better ensure that HBCU students are not only well prepared to be employees of the 21st century jobs, but also empowered to become future employers and job creators? And with that, let me introduce to you our moderator and our panelists for today's program. Beginning with our moderator for today, Hadiya Mujahid. Please give her a round of applause. Dr. Harold L. Martin, Sr., Chancellor of North Carolina A&T State University. Dr. Lily McNair, President of Tuskegee University. Dr. Larry Robinson, President of Florida A&M University. Dr. Glenda Baskin Glover, President of Tennessee State University. And Dr. C. Reynolds Verrett, President of Xavier University of Louisiana. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good. Yeah, I guess after that, the band performance, we're all ready to go. That's how you really introduce the HBCU panel. So I'm happy to have the presidents here this morning. But before we begin, let's set the record straight. Although for this room, I don't think we have to set the record straight too much. But HBCUs produce the most Black patent holders, and they graduate 50% of Black professionals, as well as 42% of Black engineers. Talk about talent. And in spite of all of this, HBCUs are still underfunded. How are HBCUs managing to deliver these impressive results despite being underfunded? And how has your school been able to achieve, how are they able to achieve these results?
We have always expected the best of our students at Tuskegee University. Knowing that we have set high standards for them, and I see their smiling faces in the audience, they know they have to achieve these standards. So we have faculty and staff and administrators who put their heart and soul into what Booker T. Washington established in 1881 when he talked about pedagogy, where you learn by doing. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, helping our students to learn by doing. So with greater resources, we would have even more opportunities for our students, but we are able to take what we have and put our all into it through important programs at Tuskegee.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Dr.
Oh, yes,
Robinson.
I too want to go back a little bit in time because there's 4 of the institutions up here are land-grant institutions, and part of our mission has been to take what we learn in the classrooms and translate that into tools that could be used by people in agriculture. However, that has always been much bigger than agriculture, but that's where it starts. So since 1890, 3 years after we were formed, FAMU was welcome to the club of 1890 land-grant institutions. Mm-hmm. Now, beyond that, however, we have incorporated the sense of discovery into all that our faculty do in the teaching and learning and research experiences of students. The only question I ask a faculty member when they are writing research grants or receiving them is, where's the money to support the students, right? Because we have to focus on training that next generation of entrepreneurs. And so one of the things that's unique, I believe, about our community as a whole is the emphasis on bringing our students along with us, right? There's a lot of ways to run outstanding research programs. However, in my opinion, if you don't include students in a university environment, you might question why you're there in the first place, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we do. But beyond that, we have some more directed initiatives that I might talk about later. For example, in our School of Business and Industry, we have an entrepreneurship course for both business and non-business majors. We expect all students to be, exposed in that. And then, something that our students participate in on every Friday, and if you haven't heard about the set at FAMU, then that's your problem, okay? but most people think it's about, fun, game, music, and dance. All of those things are happening, but what's really the foundation of the set is that we have student entrepreneurs out selling their wares, community persons selling their wares, and so forth. So our students, expected to do this, and it cuts across all disciplines at the university. And so we don't wait on somebody else to tell us. Our students are pretty aggressive, right, in this entrepreneurship space, and it starts long before they get to us. But I'll save some of those comments for later.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Martin.
Certainly. Good morning.
Good morning.
I would echo Dr. McNair and Dr. Robinson's comments. Beginning first, as land-grant institutions, it was part of our DNA from the creation of our institutions that we would, through the exploration of science and technology, innovation in our research labs for our faculty, we would then deploy that science and technology out to farmers in our regions to help improve their productivity and demonstrate their ability to make a living as small Black farmers in our regions as well. That tech culture started then, even in the midst of what we would define as less than appropriate funding for institutions. So that culture, though, did not change our commitment to our students, our commitment to our communities, with our small farmers in our regions as land-grant institutions. Many of you are graduates of HBCUs as well, and also recognize, as we did, that if we were going to change the narrative around African Americans gaining education, especially at the graduate level. We also created a culture in our universities that we needed to demand the best of our students. We had to expose them to undergraduate research experiences so that we would then motivate them to consider the possibility of going on to get master's and PhD degrees in areas of critical need in our nation as well. That culture, that expectation, and I would argue that most of us here on this panel who earned their undergraduate degrees in HBCUs had some mentor or mentors who engaged them in undergraduate research, demanded the best, pushed us, and wouldn't allow us to even suggest that we were going to do anything other than be the best we could be. But we also recognized the need that we had to also be innovative. We had to go out and find alternative sources of dollars, be they through the pressing of our alums to write checks, more checks, bigger checks, and we built bigger, more successful relationships with corporations and foundations of organizations who came to our university to recruit our graduates. And those relationships, those partnerships, many of those corporate entities are reflected in this room as well, who are partners with our universities, who have invested in our universities over the years. Those additional dollars have made a difference in scholarship support for our students, investments in our institutions, and the like. Now, we need to do more in this space, to say the least, but bringing all those resources into play in our commitment to our students and in providing educational opportunities and experiences is what has framed our success over the years. And so I'll speak more about that as the panel conversation continues. But it is our passion for what we do every day for ensuring the successes of our students.
Thank you. Dr. Glover.
Good morning. Good morning. But it's an honor to participate in such a worthwhile panel as we talk about entrepreneurship and ways to grow entrepreneurship, particularly from the HBCU standpoint, our students. Most of us know we produce students for three reasons, at least three reasons. One, you want to make sure they have meaningful careers when they graduate. Two, they want to go into graduate school, make sure they're successful in graduate school and advanced studies. And three, to become entrepreneurs. So as we look at that three-pronged approach, what can we do to make sure our students are successful at each level? So as we focus today on entrepreneurship, we know how important that is and how important we bring in this topic of venture capital, because we want to make sure that their investments are there for entrepreneurs. But we now know that you can go to the bank and get a car loan, but you can't go to the bank and get a loan to go in business. It's just that simple. Yeah. Because there's no push, there's no drive for African Americans to go in business. So I always say, we have four phases we've been through. One was in slavery. Two, you want to end Jim Crow. Three, right to vote. And now four, the age of economic development, economic empowerment, and making sure that we maintain our rightful share in this economy. To do that, we must produce entrepreneurs. And so we're ready for this entrepreneurship thrust. This should be the year of HBCU. This should be the year of HBCU entrepreneurs, because we want to make sure venture capitalists understand that we have a product in which they can invest. Otherwise, we're missing the boat. There's a lack of knowledge about HBCUs, there's a lack of desire, it's a lack of relationships. So we're here to build those relationships, make venture capitalists understand that we are here and we have a product in which it's worth investing.
Thank you so much. Dr. Berry.
Thank you. It's one of the most surprising things for me coming to this room is the level of interest. To see this room full is a very good sign. Xavier University in Louisiana, in fact, we may be the only one that is not that is an independent university on campus. But when we were founded in the early 1900s, 1915, 1920s, what you'll find is that we have remade ourselves since the beginning, continually remade ourselves in response to the signs of the times. In the late 20s, early 30s, we founded the College of Pharmacy, the first College of Pharmacy in Louisiana, even though our graduates could not practice pharmacy in our state or in any of the Confederate states. But you'll find pharmacists, generations of pharmacists in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, throughout the nation who come from Xavier, and now the healthcare industry is undergirded by the pharmacy program at Xavier. What we've done in our STEM programs to send more African Americans to graduate programs in the sciences and also more African Americans who go on to complete medicine is intentional because there was a need to actually engage students and diversify those fields, and we are entering other fields as well. For example, the management of curation of art, especially from the African diaspora, is now developing at Xavier because we're reading where those fields need to be so our students can engage. Now, what I would say is that in listening to our conversation, the word careers was mentioned by Dr. Glover. I think the word careers is an important piece in our thinking that we do not see ourselves educating students for that job. All of our graduates will get a job. But the idea is that they will be shaping their career, and that career, you and I don't have the clairvoyance to see 5 or 10 years where these young people are going. But they will have the habits of mind to be able to shape that. To be able to expand and let them think of themselves as entrepreneurs in this economy is an important piece, and we'll talk about what more we need to do, all of us. But clearly what we're doing, we tend to have entrepreneurship in business, but what we have encouraged is that the business entrepreneurship is engaging our scientists and also our students in the social sciences as well. We're making programs, for example, our computer science program is no longer in computer science, it's data science that deals in business, in physics, in the social science, and in public health, because the big data is a key piece for them to understand what they're doing. We have a lot of entrepreneurship at our faculty level. But to communicate how to actually manage intellectual property to our students, to give them the tools to own their inventions, is something that we have yet to, we have more work to do. Yeah. But what we do see is to give them the sense that they can lead. That's the other important dimension, that our students have the capacity and develop this on campus to be able to go out into the world and step into places where they need to be, whether as lawyers, as physicians, as the chief pharmacist in the Presbyterian system in New York City. When they arrive, there's a certain confidence that they have the tools to actually build and grow. That's what they get at an HBCU. And what I'm encouraged by is that American industry, the Fortune 500, the Russell 500 companies are discovering that the reservoir of talent that we have here is not only necessary for their advancement, but necessary for the country as well. And these young men and women, they're outstanding.
Thank you. That's actually the perfect segue. So since its inception, the National HBCU Braintrust has convened industry, government, and HBCUs to discuss the recruitment and retention of HBCU talent into the workforce. Now, we know in order to meet true diversity and inclusion is more about preparing our students to become employers, but also to become employer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does I say that the other way?
Yes.
Employees, but also to become employers. That's very important I get that correct. Mm-hmm. And so how many of your institutions have business programs? And of those, how many support direct engagement with some of the CEOs, corporate executives, and the important venture capitalists?
Yeah, I bet everybody up here does, right? We certainly do at Fordham University. We have a special program with a subset of the whole ecosystem of companies. There are a lot out there. You know, they're gearing up for recruitment on our campus right now, the career fair. But we have another special group that we call the industry cluster. We go deeper and broader with them. You know, there are scholarship opportunities, internship opportunities, jobs, research, and contributions, right? Mm-hmm. And those are partnerships that are very special because it allows us to drill down to the specific needs of those companies. We can go real deep with them. But I do think everybody up here would probably agree as well that those kinds of partnerships could be expanded, right? Okay. And so we're looking to expand those. You know, we were just out in Silicon Valley last year, a very novel program. You probably heard about it, the Google Tech Exchange program, really novel. It was original, and I want to commend President Frederick at Howard for, getting through this program a year before. We all got involved, about 5 or 6 of us, but we met with several CEOs when we were out there. And it's kind of amazing that the thirst for talent from our institutions is really high. The challenge that they have is really understanding that when you come to our campus, looking for the best and the brightest that we have, you need to be prepared to pay and coddle and nurture and support them. Otherwise, you might get them, but you're not going to be able to retain them, because they want to get somewhere, just like my colleague said, they're beyond just a job, they're really beyond the career. They want to be running something. And if you don't give them the chance to do that, then they're going to go and find it somewhere else. So part of the problems is getting people beyond just coming to recruitment fairs, trying to pick off the best and the brightest, because by the time they try to get to those students, the special relationship companies have pretty much cherry-picked the best of them. Okay, so we need to have them understand that. Don't come to HBCUs looking to fill the last and most undesirable positions. You better come to us looking for the best and the brightest, because these kids are extremely talented and can go anywhere.
And I would echo what Dr. Robinson says. We are really the answer to the nation's question about diversity. Come to HBCUs, not to fill a quota, but to bring in people who will be leaders in your companies. So bringing in a cohort of students and giving them the kind of support so that they can move on to positions where they are in leadership, where they are heads of innovation, and so on. And one way that we accomplish this is by having mentors from Fortune 500 companies who come and provide ongoing mentorship for our students, especially those who are interested in becoming venture capitalists. I have talked to students who say that this is my career goal, and at the end, I want to have a company to do X, Y, and Z. And they see that the path for them is very well laid out at Tuskegee, but they've got to be able to be promoted and moved on and be in an environment where they do feel valued, that they feel valued.
So one of the conversations was about the creation of an environment where there is a growing interest in entrepreneurship. And I think Dr. Bro indicated in her comments that a growing population of our students and all of our universities are arriving at our door, having either started a small business of some sort while in high school, or are desirous of doing so when they arrive on our campuses. So our universities have a need, a responsibility, or an expectation from parents and our students in growing ways to have access to courses, development plans, strategies, think tanks, incubator facilities, and the like, so that they have an opportunity to explore the process of developing business plans, understand how to do that through framed courses, which we provide in a very structured way to our College of Business that all our students are able to take. And then we create every year a competition where our students, through very well-defined, thoughtful competitions, either individually or in teams, compete for reviews of their design competition projects. And then we have created a venture capitalist fund that allows us to fund the best of those ideas. They win cash, yes, but we provide the initial investments for those students to take their business ideas now start implementing them. And then they have around them faculty advisors, and every one of our colleges has an advisory board of very competitive, suite level people who bring their experiences and help guide these students in their projects. We also have a very extensive level of alums who've created businesses, and they bring their experiences back to the table and talk with our students on a regular basis, do's and don'ts about starting a business, the risks of starting your own business, the commitments you've got to have when you go out and start your own businesses, for example. I use the example, and I say this and I give my colleagues the opportunity to make a few comments as well. Many of us in this room who may be north of 50, as we were, speak for myself, I know, I heard you. If your parents are like my parents, they wanted you to have a stable job. Yes. Get a good degree, competitive degree, get a good job, get good benefits, and so that you can support yourself and your family. That was one aspect of the issue. The other aspect of the issue was that even if you wanted to start a business, you didn't have opportunity to have access to venture capital. And if you failed, you could not depend on your parents to help bridge you over until you were able to get back on your feet, a new idea. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. These students are coming out of a lot of families who have that capacity to do that. Mm-hmm. And our sons, like many of the young people in this room, know that they are being pushed to be risk takers. Mm-hmm. And we have to enable our students to be much more prone to take risks. Let's face it, starting a business is being a risk taker, quite honestly. But we also have to help guide them to be smarter about when this is the right time to start their businesses. Many of our graduates, we're saying to them, if you've got a great idea, you can demonstrate, you can raise the money, go start your business. If you're not quite sure about it, take a great job in an area where you may want to learn the business even more so. Capture the experiences, and then go out and start your business once you've gained a little more experience, depth of experiences. And we're seeing more graduates now do that, take the risk, and are starting very successful businesses. And we've got to continue through our universities, create frameworks, structure, expectations, programs to help launch these bright, talented young people who have business ideas.
Thank you. I'm going to get Dr. Glover and then Dr. Barrett. Start with Dr. Glover. Sorry.
Thank you. Your question started out originally about the Fortune 500 and companies coming to campus to recruit. And so let's go back there for a moment. I think most companies understand the model that when you come to a campus to recruit and start a relationship, a collaboration with the campus and the students, it's about that partnership. We produce great students, so there's a partnership in return. There's expectation that you're going to be a full partner, whether it means underwriting something, making a contribution, get a building named after you. We like to have the Wells Fargo building, Gigi. So it just means that there is a new partnership there. And as it's about relationships. We started a great relationship with Amazon because Amazon is moving to Nashville, focus on two cities in the Northeast, but Nashville. And so being the only public HBCU in Nashville, we met with Amazon, started an outstanding partnership with them that can only grow. And so it's those kinds of relationships. Last year, 2 years ago, at the Congressional Caucus, we met a person from Apple. It's these relationships. So we started an Apple partnership and teaching everybody how to code, and these things grow. So take advantage of the Congressional Caucus. That's where I met both people. That's how we start these relationships. And speaking of entrepreneurship, it has not, the families are really encouraging more and more entrepreneurship efforts. My daughter was at Spelman, and one day, she called and said, "Ma, do you need any money?" So I said, "I need any money. What are you doing that's illegal?" She said, "No, I have my business is doing well." "What business?" She said, "I'm doing hair. I'm braiding hair, and I've learned how to undercut the markets. They're charging $200. I'm charging $150, and I have a line. Well, how do you study?" So that's an entrepreneurship because the effort. And so same with my son. The same thing. He was at Moguls. He was building apps for students. He would build apps and he would sell them. I knew nothing about it until he called me one day and said, "Mom, you know what? I'm going to give back to Morehouse." I gave them $100. "You did? I'm so thrilled. You now got the model." It gets funnier than that. And so I bragged on it. I told my pastor, I see standing back there, Pastor Dalton. I told my pastor, my son got the model. He knows he has to give back because he gave Morehouse $100 based on his entrepreneurship. However, 30 days later, I got my American Express bill. $100 to Morehouse. Some investments in little things for apps. So I said, well, at least he has the entrepreneurial spirit, and I am his venture capitalist.
That's funny. Dr. Barrett.
Not to repeat what's been said, one of the things that I want to mention is that we have on this form that basically helping students understand the flexibility and plasticity of their degrees. That's a very important thing at Xavier. We have a group called the YMTF, the Youth Minority Motivational Task Force, which is basically, it began with alumni more than 25 years ago. And now half of them are not alumni, they are what we call Friends of Xavier, the True Foxes. And they come and spend a week on campus from many industries, and what they are helping our students think of their, because they have unusual career paths in many cases, but they're coming with as representatives of their companies, and they are working and being an example to our students. Some from the federal government, from many of the industries around this country, and that it has been a staple of giving back for our alumni, but also of bringing these true friends who some have come and eventually become part of our board, so that we have those relationships. The other piece that I think is very important to us is that at least the business program has a very active advisory council, which has members from C-suite, who are there to not only shape the program, but to help us understand what linkages we can actually send our students. The internships are key things for us. We do that very well. I think what we need to do is actually how we expand that to the non-scientists, to the non-business majors, because our musicians are fundamentally entrepreneurs. Our mass comm students are fundamentally entrepreneurs. The artists, that's the nature of a business. It's not. It's basically where you are advancing yourself, advancing your products. And our scientists, who tend very often who are going to grad school, need to understand how they control their ideas and their properties, because that is not fundamentally part of the education of a traditional track.
Thank you. All right, so I just wanted, because we have one more question, and then we're going to wrap, if you don't mind. So this is a shameless plug for the program that I run, HBCU VC, which is HBCU Venture Capital, where we are building some of these strong relationships with our HBCU campuses. And our fellows are in the room. If you guys want to stand up real quick. Our fellows, our HBCU fellows who are in the room. Part of the work that they are doing is actually understanding the ins and outs of the venture capital industry, including the flow of capital. And so some of the things that we discuss with the flow of capital is that a lot of the capital that go to venture capitalists in the tradition sometimes comes from university endowments. And so what role do you see your university playing in investing in some of this early stage innovation? I don't know if anyone wants to.
So I wanted to, before, because it's about venture capital,
Yes.
but we left out a couple of major players, you know, local governments and the federal government. You know, I had a meeting just yesterday afternoon with Ben Carson about opportunity zones. We have a great idea for him to fund, to develop an innovative center around resilient communities with regard to hurricanes and other high wind, water-related events. And there's a lot of money, you know, a whole lot of money in that space that we need to make sure that we get our fair share of first, okay? And I don't think we're getting our fair share of those monies, right? It's not just in the private sector. Well, actually, that is the private sector, but it's being sort of facilitated and driven through, you know, the federal sector. And so we're having conversations about, you know, those opportunities as well. And when it comes to our foundations, you know, we were talking, Chancellor Martin and I, just before we got in, is how, you know, so many of the non-HBCUs who have huge endowments are using that to leverage and advance, you know, their entrepreneurial-related activities. In fact, one of our sister institutions in Florida had a $100 million donation to establish an entrepreneurial center, right? And so as we talk about the kinds of things that we're going to do with monies provided to us where we can do it, we have to invest in our own future, right? And so we're looking at ways we can take those kinds of dollars in our foundations, unrestricted funds, right, and apply them to these kinds of uses to advance faculty. You know, we're doing a lot of that. You know, we support a lot of students, but it's not necessarily an entrepreneurial space exclusively, but we need to do more of that, you know, in a directed manner.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the core issues for us as universities is without big, large endowments, as President Robinson made reference to, we have to be innovative in other ways and creating resources to help not only create opportunities for our students to start their own businesses, but also our faculty who are generating more innovation today. So we have to put infrastructure in place so that we are pushing them to take their best ideas and we help move them to patent disclosure so that that innovation gets protected. And then we have to think about ways that we use those patents or that innovation to generate revenue. So we now can sell that as we do more today in a very significant way. And so you're seeing the patents on our university growing more significantly because you're creating a culture of protecting innovation, but you're also, through policy, creating structure for those faculty members now to start companies. You also have to look at ways, as we're doing more extensively today, lots of our alums from our universities are starting technology companies, starting construction companies, but then they want to come back and do business with you. Mm-hmm. They're not able to bond based on the cost. So you have to fund those projects for those, to give them opportunities on your campus and help move them from one stage to the next. It's amazing the number of companies started by our university's alums who now are making substantial levels of revenue because we've helped them grow their business through partnerships with our university, so they now are able to bond. Now they can get more competitive projects. We've also been very critical of the quality of their work, healthily. They help build the substance of their work, the quality of their work, the quality of their bid packets, so that they are better business activity. And they now value those kinds of relationships. Those are other tangible ways we can contribute. But one of the things we've done is created a research park now that allows us to bring other industries in the region when they're locating in North Carolina, in Greensboro, close proximity to our university. Those are ways that we can create innovation, create jobs, invest in startups, either students, faculty, or individuals in our community.
Dr. McNeil,
Okay.
did you?
And we need.
Sorry, I just wanted to give the.
No, we are working with supporting faculty research regarding work that can be translated into patents and then monetized. And those types of funds can be used to add to our operating funds, our endowment, and so forth. So we're working at the beginning stages of really funding that type of innovation, which provides opportunities for our students with regard to research, because they are involved in creating the research that leads to these patents. And we also have several conferences where students really are focused on pitching their ideas to prospective venture capitalists. And we are working with the private venture capitalists to provide incubator opportunities for our students in the city of Tuskegee. And that's in its planning stages and down the road. But we see that as a wonderful way to build on the community and university partnership that's so critical for the success of all of us, and especially for our students.
Dr. Glover, and then I can open up for questions.
And I think we need to work more closely with HBCUs that have incubators. We can incubate companies, and then when they're ready, they can be dispersed out there and to do their own thing. Some examples like TSU, you've heard of Christy Cookie. I mean, that young lady came out of our TSU Incubation Center. Slim and Husky, that has the pizza, they came out of the Incubation Center. You know, we have a couple of millionaires who live right in Tennessee. We came out of the TSU Incubation Center. So it's really important that we know that there are schools, universities that have incubation centers. And I'll give you one more example. We had a FedEx grant from Federal Express to start entrepreneurship. We wrote the grant in our research area, and they started we made some investments for student entrepreneurs. And one young lady wanted to, for Gatorade, she wanted to remove some of the caloric content out of it, the sugar content. And so we funded that. We invested in her. We gave, I think it was maybe $5,000. My team out there can tell me. It was about $5,000. and gave her some space, a lab space, and so she's about to go to the market with it. So it's those kinds of things that we encourage. It doesn't come from our endowment, because the endowment is very specific. It's the scholarship and some other, but you have to be very creative in how you use the funds that come from the state or your alumni or even from other sources. But just within the universities themselves, we encourage entrepreneurship by financing some of their activities.
We're going to open it up for questions, and if you have a question, I think you can come to the center aisle and ask your question, and while you are preparing your question and come to the center aisle, Dr. Vera, if you wanted to.
Well, only one quick thought is that we have a number of faculty who are themselves starting companies, who are patenting, who are using the SBIR and STTR vehicles to create companies that are offshore to our university. I would say that one of the pieces that we need to look at is the model of how our students actually get to see how that's done. Because if we think of those 3, 4, 5 universities you mentioned that own about 70% or 80% of the VC capital space, what happens is that as they are doing this, these faculty are bringing their students to basically witness and be part of that effort, so that when they leave, they already have that mindset. What we need to encourage our faculty, those great researchers, to actually get our students to be the apprenticeship. And I think we need much more of that.
Are there any questions from the audience? Okay. If you could just introduce yourself when you ask the question. Let's start here first.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Wilson. I'm the Associate Vice President for Research and Sponsored Programs at Clark Atlanta University. And at Clark, we do have a Center of Innovation and Economic Development. And like you, they are focusing on providing startup activities or how to grow your business activities for our students. But it also extends to the community. So there's some mom and pop shops on the southwest side of Atlanta that we're helping grow their business. But my question is more about social entrepreneurship, because I don't think our students know that you can develop and grow a 501c3 to the point where that 501c3 can have competitive salaries, both at the administrative level and the staff level, while keeping their efficiency ratios in a respectable range. So my question is, what are you all doing to help our students understand that social entrepreneurship is another avenue for running your own business?
So we actually house the Small Business Development Center on our campus at FAMU. It works with small disadvantaged businesses, in our region. That includes moms and pops, for-profit, not-for-profits, and our students actually are use those as case studies as part of their capstone courses in the School of Business and Industry, and so they're really connected with that. In fact, we have one of those businesses represented here this morning, Dominic Station. Dominic, that's one of those businesses. It's a partnership with the City of Tallahassee, FAMU, and what it does is provide opportunities for anyone to get coding, et cetera, to get them more employable, better jobs at any level. And so it's not that he's looking to make a whole lot of money. Through that initiative, he's looking to uplift the lives of other folks, but at the same time, you can see he dresses pretty well. He's not doing too bad.
I think most of our universities, if you ask the predominance of our students, they want to make money, but it is amazing. Right away, yes. But it's amazing how many of our students want to make a difference in their communities. They do. So you have to, whether they've just finished med school, they want to go back and be successful in the community and provide health care, or if they're starting a business, they want to give jobs to individuals back in the community to uplift the community. So you have to help them balance. Let's get you out being successful, making some money in a better place, so you can then go back and be much more effective in making a difference in the community as well. And so the whole idea of social entrepreneurship requires a good balance, and as you're advising students about and anyone about starting business, about making a difference in cleaning up the environment or making a contribution in enhancing those who are less fortunate. It's a balance in making sure that they are able to create a balance sheet that's positive so they're making some money, if you will. And so I think all of us are engaged in some aspect of social entrepreneurship, quite honestly.
And I just want to add that social entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily always have to be 501c3.
That's
You do
right.
have for-profit companies
That's right.
that are also making a social impact. Yeah, I know.
I agree
Thank
with
you. And take, last question. Yes, I think this is going to be the last question.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
My name is Brent Simpson. I'm a graduate of Bowie State University. And I was actually an Excel scholar at Xavier University when I was in high school. A great program. You guys had a critical thinking piece that I thought was amazing. But with that being said, now my office is maybe 2 miles away from Bowie State University. I'm an entrepreneur. And one of the things I wondered is, are there any restrictions stopping or really suffocating the schools from creating innovation funds? That there's not always a VC out there waiting to give a big check, but there are a lot of like mom and pops or people who work 9 to 5 that can contribute to an innovation fund and allow you all to use that money to fund the schools, the students, and they still get a piece back in the form of a dividend.
So I just want to add that that's part of the work that we do. So this year, our fellows are investing small seat size, dorm room size checks into student entrepreneurs. And so we're helping to help close that gap to provide and support our HBCUs.
So our innovation fund that supports our students, once the students have reached a level in their business plan development and the evaluation of their development, their business plans by a team of business leaders and our campus advisory groups, we provide them those funds. Those funds go directly to the student business, and they have the full responsibility to use those funds to pay their salary or pay other salaries or pay their operational costs, for example. And so, absolutely.
And are alumni allowed to put their monies towards those funds?
We accept checks from alums, from business leaders, corporations, foundations, entrepreneurs in the community. So we have a strategy to raise funds specifically to support that initiative. Absolutely.
And many of us have innovation funds, and those innovation funds are used for the startup businesses. I mentioned a young lady who started the drink, Tiger Light, and I mentioned that we have another young lady, but it was financed from the innovation fund. Young lady's building parts for the selling to the shipping industry, Northrop Grumman, I believe. And so it comes, you can't use state dollars. We're a state school. You can't use the state dollars to invest in make that type of investment. And you don't want to use endowment because that has very specific restrictions, and it's mainly for scholarships. It's not really for entrepreneurship. But you find other ways to be creative to do that, and Innovation Fund is one of those ways.
So beyond money, there are other sort of in-kind things that are very, very important. We, in our foundation, which has a separate facility health campus, we actually allow for space to be utilized by some of the small businesses and entrepreneurs to take use of at a very, very low price, if at all, in some instances. So that's very, very important to have your shingle, an address somewhere that's not mom and dad's, home. And so we provide those types of things to our students and others in the community as well.
Thank you for the question. And so we are out of time, but before we go, I want to give each president a minute to talk about any reflections, any closing reflections. And so we'll start with you, Dr. McNair. Sorry.
Thank you. It really is such a pleasure to see so many people here at this session. And it says to me, as it says to all of us, especially as Dr. Verrett pointed out, there really is an interest in supporting our students who want to become entrepreneurs. And we know with this young generation, the idea of innovation, the idea of creating one's own, the idea of running one's own business is at the top of their list. So we know that our contribution to this is the kind of educational opportunities that we provide, whether it be in terms of research, whether it be in terms of internships with companies, whether it's in terms of helping students to connect with alumni-funded businesses in the community that are social entrepreneur of themselves. So our students have an opportunity to see all the different types of entrepreneurial relationships, and they're able to pick a path or pick many paths that will lead to their success in those areas. All the while, we're looking to enhance our relationship with the community and, as our students will say, make a difference in the world around them.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson.
Yeah, I just want to connect back to research for a moment, just to make a point. And first of all, I want to commend these institutions who are represented here today. I know there's 100 more out there that are doing wonderful things as well. I'm really proud to be on this panel. But one of the things that I think we all need to consider is that we can sit back and allow other people to do research and economic development and assume that it's going to impact us in the ways and the places that we would like for it to, right? Or we can wake up and continue this conversation much more aggressively and do it ourselves. What's really important about the research and entrepreneurship ideas I hear about is there is that underpinning of, the social component, right? Raising our communities. A lot of people want to make money, at the expense of our communities, but they're not necessarily interested in reinvesting in our communities. And so that's the type of entrepreneurship I think we are going to lead at our institutions. And when it comes to the research, we can assume that people who are educated at these verified institutions, like Duke and others, are going to take care of the research needs that you have, your health and your health disparities, the types of cancers that you have versus somebody else. I think that's folly. So this is something that I'm really proud of when I think about the institutions here, because I know the kind of world-class research that they're doing, and I know that it affects or impacts all sectors of our society, but there's a focus on the communities that we serve, in other words, okay? And so if we don't get behind these institutions and support them more, then who else is going to do that, right? Nobody's going to do that but us. It's not going to be a second coming. We are responsible for supporting these institutions. So I'm really, really, really pleased to be a part of this panel because this is a critically important topic.
Thank you. Dr. Martin.
I would echo Dr. Robinson's comments as well. This really is an incredibly important conversation. It's great to be a part of the discussion, quite honestly. I was trying to think of the last few comments I would make today. And so I thought I'd start in this space. Sometimes our universities, our HBCUs, are somewhat rigid in our behavior and organizational structure. And sometimes we bristle at change, the necessary change that we have to be engaged in that transforms the role we play as economic drivers in our communities, quite honestly. And so we have to keep doing that. I'll give two quick examples. We have a growing population of students who want to start, they've talked about venture capital funds, but also they want to be investment bankers. They want to manage investment funds, for example. And so after spending some time with the group as a whole, I went to our board of trustees and said, look, we ought to create a part of our endowment for the university and set it aside with proper oversight and advisement for this group and let them advise the fund. Let them manage the fund. If they're ever going to go out and manage someone else's assets, we ought to help them understand the market. Do you think so? And so give them the opportunity to manage resources, make stock purchases, have a investment strategy so that they know how to do this and do this very well. amazingly, they outperformed our fund managers for our endowment. Isn't it amazing that they do that? And so the other example I would give is that I indicated we created this research park, and one of our alums created this injection molding company, makes plastic parts. If you drive a BMW, those plastic parts in your BMW, he most likely made in his company because he provides as a supplier to BMW. South Carolina's getting ready to move him to South Carolina to move all of the suppliers closer to the manufacturer in South Carolina. And he said, I'd love to stay in Greensboro, Harold. I'd love to just stay here and be closer to people I know and et cetera. What can you do to help me? And I said, well, I don't know, but we can try. So we decided we'd build a building. We have no money. We decided we'd put a strategy to do that. Long story short, we created framework. Banks in our region helped us create this. The city helped put money into it. We built a building for this business right in our community, created jobs. He stayed in Greensboro. His business has already grown by 40%, even over last year. So we've got to be innovative. We've got to be creative, and we've got to work relationships with our local banks to help us invest in individuals who have great, secure opportunities to grow their business, create their businesses that also benefit our communities as well. So.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Now, Dr. Glover and Dr. Vera, if you could
So in
briefly
closing,
give your closing
because
remarks.
in closing, I just want to say that we mentioned earlier that this is the period of economic explosion for African Americans and for other people of color. So, and there is a desire, there's just a desire to own your own business. There's several of us up here, we consult, we have consulting firms, so we all want to be a part of this picture. We want to have a part of this economic pie. And so we just encourage you to support students, to support others in the community, the incubation centers, because students have a dream to become entrepreneurs, and if we don't help them, they're going to do it anyway. So we may as well get on board and help, because if God has put a dream in their heart to be a business owner, He's going to certainly help them bring it to pass.
I know it's very brief. The thought I would want to leave you with is to go back to what our core business is about education. And as we think of entrepreneurship as this open word, we have to remember that entrepreneurship has to be grounded in some idea, something that you are building and developing, whether it's in the media or whether it's from the sciences. So our students are coming in and being educated in specialized areas with deep skills. What we have to help is encourage our faculty to encourage in those majors that there is a component that teaches our students entrepreneurship in those, how they capitalize on those on that deep knowledge. What we have not, and as my fellow presidents mentioned, we tend to be rather conservative institutions, not reactive to change. But the curriculum is the place where we have to make sure that our students encounter this thinking the same way that they encounter great literature. So our faculty are quite creative, so that in those outcomes we have to make sure it's not just in the business school, it's in the engineering program, it's also in the music department. Make sure all of our students get enmeshed in this idea that basically they can own their future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so, thank you, presidents. Can we give a round of applause for... Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. And I also want to personally offer myself and our organization as a resource to you and the students that you represent here today. Thank you. Thank you. Now, next, I would like to introduce, for our next panel, Okay, sorry. I would like to introduce American Airlines, GM, and Cape Port Capital. Yes.
Thank you very much. On behalf of American Airlines, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. Of course, we are American Airlines Group has 130,000 employees in the U.S. and around the world, and grateful for the opportunity to partner with the HBCU Braintrust, advancing minorities' interests in engineering, and of course, Congresswoman Alma Adams and her incomparable Chief of Staff, Rhonda Fox. The HBCUs play an extraordinarily important role in American Airlines' efforts to recruit the diverse and talented workforce that we need in order to run our very sophisticated operation. We have a number of different initiatives in which we partner with HBCUs and try and harness the power of the students at HBCUs in order to recruit our workforce, and that's why we're super excited to have the opportunity to partner here today. American Airlines was able to fly a number of the students, HBCU students who were here today, and if I could ask any of the students that are here to stand up that were able to come here on American Airlines. So, of course, once again, we're grateful to the Advancing Minorities' Interests in Engineering. We're grateful to Congresswoman Adams and grateful to be part of the HBCU Braintrust. And with that, I'd like to introduce Ken Barrett from General Motors.
Thank you, Steve. Hey, let's give it up again for Steve and what they're doing at American Airlines. Isn't that great? You know, first, I also want to acknowledge Congresswoman Adams. Her visionary leadership is really instrumental to everything that you're seeing in front of you today. So, and also to acknowledge, I see her walking out of the room. We've got Rhonda Fox here. She has been just a true professional in every manner, shape, and form. So let's give it up for Rhonda one more time. You know, General Motors is a proud supporter of HBCUs, and I'm particularly pleased to see Dr. Martin, Chancellor of North Carolina A&T, on this panel. Yes. GM has a long and storied history with North Carolina A&T, which graduates the largest number of black engineers in the country. So give it up to North Carolina A&T. You know, of note, and as it relates to the technology and innovation field, we selected North Carolina A&T as one of 8 universities across North America to compete in the Auto Drive Challenge, a 3-year autonomous vehicle design competition launched in 2017 by General Motors and SAE International. Over the 3 years, students are challenged to develop and demonstrate an autonomous passenger vehicle using the all-electric Chevy Bolt. And I'm happy to state that North Carolina A&T finished second place in the Auto Drive Year 2 Challenge. That's right. And I know they're aiming to be #1 this year. So let's go North Carolina A&T. But another reason why I'm here is because of my time as a board member, and I'm currently a board of director on AMI, Advancing Minorities' Interests in Engineering, which does represent the ABET accredited HBCU schools of engineering. And I'm honored to once again provide financial support to the organization on behalf of General Motors to support student development. And this year, our funds have gone to bring the students here. So give it up to the students one more time. And I see the executive director of AMI, Veronica, in the back. Thank you for being here, Veronica. So, and finally to the students, you have such a great opportunity to be here today. General Motors is a proud supporter of you and glad to see you. But I would tell you that we also need to be able to make sure that you have a connection to us. So in the audience today, we have Cherie Wilson on our government relations team, and we also have Afori Agboka, who's our executive director for HR for our corporate staff. So he's responsible for hiring everybody into finance and communications and public policy and government relations and venture capital. So anybody who's interested in those, please come see me or Afori, because I tell you, if we make that connection today, there'll be opportunities for you. As it was said on this panel, there is talent out there. It's not to try to fill any type of goal or anything like that. It's to get the talent to General Motors. So once again, on behalf of General Motors, thank you for being part of this. We're a proud sponsor, and please, please take full advantage of your time here as part of the HBCU Braintrust. Now, I've got 2 things to acknowledge for you. We've got a panel at 12 o'clock, the industry panel, so please stand by for that. But I know you want to all have it, so once again, let's welcome the Bowie State University Band.
Well, good afternoon. My name's Natalie Brown. I am the Director of Corporate Citizenship with Ally Financial, and it's an honor to be here today to support the 2019 National HBCU Braintrust that's really focused on power and potential of Black innovation. At Ally, we're committed to support and giving back to the communities that are focused on reducing barriers of economic mobility. In March of this year, we made an important investment in HBCUs and in entrepreneurship. But simply put, it was because we wanted to find a solution as to why 13% of the American population is Black, but only 1% of venture capital-backed startups have Black founders. So in partnership with entertainer and entrepreneur Big Sean and the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, Ally launched a program called Moguls in the Making. This is a program where we brought 50 students across 10 HBCUs to compete for a weekend-long competition, a challenge for them to develop solutions, economic mobility solutions that impact our communities. So our Mogul students, they had an opportunity to come up with some fantastic ideas, and then they presented those ideas to some Ally executives, to Big Sean, and other entrepreneurs of color, like the principal Tommy Walker of Detroit versus Everybody. Do we have anybody from Detroit in the room? Yeah. So you all know who Tommy is for sure. And our interns got a chance to win scholarships, internships, and much more. And even beyond that, our CEO was so impressed with the students that he saw that weekend. Not only did the winning team receive internships, but we hired 16 interns out of that 50 this summer and this fall. And in the end, our FAMU Rattlers came in first place. Let's give it up for FAMU in the room. My Aggies, I am an alum. We came in second place by 1 point. We lost by 1 point. Let's give it up for the Aggies in the room. And then Morgan State came in third place. Any Morgan State Bears in the room? And in the room with us today, we have a Mogul from Howard University. I want her to stand up so they can hear you. Yes. She participated in our competition. And what they learned through this process, not just about entrepreneurship and the skills to be great entrepreneurs, but they learned that while generational poverty persists, economic mobility is possible. And so today, Ally Financial is proud to support this dialogue of executives and the conversation that will help move this conversation forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce the moderator, Dosi Isom III, who will be facilitating the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, we're just thrilled again for this opportunity to be here. And I am a leader at T-Mobile on the HR leadership team. I'm a vice president that supports many of our executive development programs and our early recruitment programs, which include recruiting on college campuses. And as we mentioned yesterday, we've been proud to be a part of this program for the third year and presenting scholarships each time. And this year we're introducing some new efforts and focusing in support on the campuses of several HBCUs. So very excited about that. But even more excited to introduce this panel and get started with these questions for the panel. So our first panel introduction is Vanessa Liu, who's a VP at SAP Roundtree North America. We also have Dr. Nashley Cephas, who's the Applied Science Manager at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Joe Briggs, Counsel at the NFL Players Association. Marcelino Ford Levine, MD, Portfolio Management and Head of Executive in Residence Program, that is a mouthful, at Intel. And Belinda Kennedy, Global Academic Programs Manager at IBM. So with no further ado, let's get going. So my first question, we'll give a second to get this mic transition going. Are we hearing us? Not yet? All right, have we got us yet? If not, oh, it sounds like we do. Thank you. So my first question is for Vanessa. At Amazon, you know both worlds and working at a startup as well as at a tech giant. How has that been for a woman of color maneuvering within both sectors? What barriers have you faced? And what do you want our HBCU students to know about your journey?
Right, so, hello, testing. Can you all hear me?
Keep talking. I think they might get you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Testing. Okay, can you hear me okay now? No?
Why not just go ahead and stay?
Okay. Okay. So, I think I'll take that question. Okay, thank you so much. So I'll take that question. I'm Dr. Nashley Cephas, and I am, as you mentioned, from Amazon. So my quest is very unique. I'm all started back in, grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. My favorite HBCU is Jackson State University. And so, okay. So I didn't really know what engineering was until I got to the 8th grade. I remember doing a lot of summer camps. Actually, Jackson State had a lot of summer camps I used to go to. My mom was one of those moms where you're not gonna sit at home all summer and play video games. Like, you're gonna be at somebody's camp, you're gonna be doing something, working or something. You're not just be sitting at the house wasting up her air and stuff like that. So that was us. We were always in some program. And I remember going to an engineering camp in 8th grade. I actually ended up going to Mississippi State for undergrad, which is a predominantly white institution. But I remember being introduced to computer engineering, and that changed my whole world in the 8th grade. So a lot of my colleagues who are also African American, they can relate to, maybe your family didn't know anything about engineering. We thought engineers were somebody who worked on a train or a railroad track. I didn't know anything about calculus and math and all different types of engineering you could go into. And so when I found that out, it just really blew my mind. And my mom was a single mother. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. So it was a house full of women. And so we worked on everything. We mowed the yard, we fixed things, we painted, we did all of that. And so I think that all lended itself to, wanting me to pursue engineering. But to jumpstart, I ended up going to Mississippi State University, getting my PhD at Georgia Tech in computer engineering as well. And then assisting a young lady named Jewel Burks, who became the CEO of a startup called PartPick, and I became her CTO. And so we ended up having that company, raising over $2 million, and ended up getting acquired and selling the company to Amazon. When I joined Amazon, I was the only, and still to this day, am the only African-American female in the applied scientist role, which means you're a research scientist who also does coding. And so that has been a very unique experience for me. Somebody got that? Okay, thank you. So, and I also have, a nonprofit back in Jackson called The Bean Path, where I try to help pour back into my community because people still to this day don't have access to technology. They don't have access to someone that they can call and say, what kind of computer should I buy? I'm at Best Buy. I get that call almost every other week. So, people who don't have access to that, you're just kind of lost, right? And so we have this program where we set up these tech office hours in the libraries in Jackson, and we host these tech office hours and let people come and ask us questions. They might want to start their own startup, and then we just try to pour that expertise into that community. So.
Wow, well, thank you so much. And you were here for the earlier panel with the HBCU presidents, and they talked about how they're preparing HBCU students to become the next generation of employers. 47% of black women engineers come from HBCUs. So from your lens, how can we best ensure women of color, like yourself, have the resources that are needed to support them in the tech sector?
Right, it's a great question. So I know that there are several programs that we're a big industry. I think it's a responsibility of all big tech industries to support HBCUs and to support innovation in those communities. We have a responsibility at Amazon to do that. We have a future engineer program where we try to teach kids how to code. We have a curriculum that kind of shows people who want to get into coding, no matter where you are in your career, what are the true attributes of a good software development engineer at Amazon, and they teach those in that program. They also offer internships and scholarships. I know Google has a similar program with the Howard West program. There are so many resources online. One, we have to educate ourselves. All the information is out there. Like, there's nothing stopping anyone in here from going and learning how to code and learning how to be in tech field. And actually, not even just learning how to code, but there are other careers in tech, such as product management. There are careers such as HR, such as design. How do you design apps? Like, if you have a great technology and nobody can use it, it is useless. Like, I don't care how smart you are. You need somebody that's really gonna make it user-friendly. And all these careers, you know, we wanna encourage our young people to pursue. So in any way possible, there are lots of resources out there, and there are lots of companies that are helping to enrich that curriculum. So.
Thank you so much. So Marcelino, Intel is one of the largest corporate VCs in the world, and we've been talking about it. Would you take some time and explain what a corporate VC is and what CVC means to Intel?
Sure. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Corporate venture capital basically is a situation where you have a corporate entity which has an investment arm. And at Intel, we have a group of individuals that are tasked with investing in a variety of different sectors, all with the goal of increasing financial return for our shareholders. In addition to that, we support Intel's strategic initiatives by investing in companies or investing in future technologies that we think may be accretive to our business units.
Thank you. So as a follow-up, when you look at the Intel's partnership with the NFL Players Association Accelerator program, many of the players in the NFL are diverse. How has this partnership spurred new investments, if any, in black startups or tech ventures?
No, it's a great question. I think the promise of the One Team Collective, which is an initiative driven by the NFL Players Association, Intel Capital, and several other private venture capital firms, is really to create an environment and an opportunity for companies that have interesting applications or technologies that are looking to receive support and funding. Intel's contribution to that effort is one of being a technology advisor. We also have a board seat, and we're there working with our partners to identify interesting companies and opportunities where we can invest and participate in.
Thank you. So Vanessa, at SAP, 58% of the startups you funded or accelerated are diverse founders. That's incredible. Clearly, you're making strategic and targeted investments. Tell us more about your process and why diverse innovation is so important.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. So SAP IO is the early stage venture arm for SAP. This is where we make investments and we also accelerate companies. The IO stands for small input, so a small I, leading to a big output, a big O, in case you were wondering why there's the IO. And this is about giving a little bit of support for startups so that they can have significant impact once they're plugged into the SAP ecosystem. And since inception 2 years ago, we have worked with over 125 startups in 8 locations globally. And the reason why we're doing this is because customers are coming to us and asking for us for what is the most pressing innovations they should consider for their businesses. And so we give them basically like a eagle eye into those startups that we think are really making the most difference. And the startups we mentor, we give them a lot of support around sales and marketing and pricing and get them in front of customers. And for customers, they're getting early access into these companies. And we do this all within an inclusive lens. And so we have a commitment called No Boundaries, where at least 40% of the companies we fund or accelerate are founded by women and people of color. And this is on a global basis, not just in the United States. And the reason why we are doing this, and also I should just say that over the next 5 years, we expect to work with over 500 startups. So that means at least 200 startups we will be funding or accelerating that are started by underrepresented founders. The reason why we're doing this is because the long-term trajectory of technology depends upon who is at the table when basically decisions are being made and progress is being made. And as stewards of technology, we think that it's incredibly important for SAP to be particular about who we choose to work with. And so this is why we so believe it. Like, if you're saying we want to make technology better, you then have to say then, Who is it better for whom, and in what way? And so we have worked with amazing founders. I think some of you in the room might have heard from the Gooder team yesterday, their food waste management company, one of our proud New York Foundry graduates, and Jasmine Crow, their founder, and also 5 others on their team are very proud HBCU graduates. And so for us, so much of this is about really being there, this is a game changer to pick who are going to be the next entrepreneurs to back. And corporations have a really, really important role to play. And so that's why we're doing this.
Wow, we really appreciate that. And what could other venture capitalists as well as CVCs do to spur this innovation?
So right now, we are the only company that we know of in the enterprise tech space that has made such a public commitment. We don't want to be the only ones. We want to have all of our peer companies and our customers also have a similar commitment. That would really affect change.
Thank you. Belinda, at IBM, one of the key beliefs of the CBC is that relationships are fundamental to establishing strategic and real partnerships with HBCUs. You went to an HBCU. You know those schools well. How has your familiarity with these institutions helped shape IBM's engagement with HBCUs?
Thank you very much for that question. I like it because we all watched the band go through. Most people don't know I was in the band in West Virginia State University, so I almost fell in line and started with the tenor sax there. So I was, had to hold back there. Dr. Cole would have been very pleased since he wanted me to be in the band, and he got me in the band, because if you know Dr. Cole, he got what he wanted. I was very blessed to not only be in the band at West Virginia State University, but Dr. Cole spoke to my parents and said, we want Belinda here, not for just the first year. We want Belinda as a West Virginia State University graduate. And as I said, Dr. Cole got what he wanted. One of the things I want to talk about was how this experience led to me being in front of you now. But I did some research, because I wanted to share some things with you. And when you do research, you learn some things for yourself in addition to what you want to share with your audience. So here's some things I learned. Even before I was born, IBM was a leader in African Americans and recruiting African Americans from HBCUs. In 1946, IBM hired its first black salesperson. Not somebody cleaning the building, not somebody going and picking up after others. It was in 1946, the first black salesperson was hired by IBM. The Civil Rights Act was not passed until 1963. In 1951, the first marketing representative, Leno Lutz, was hired. He became also the first IBM black branch manager in 1964. So a management role over people of all colors. In 1951, the first marketing representative not only was hired, but in the next year, to support that marketing representative, the first black engineer was hired. So IBM has been in this space even before I was born, doing things that matter to us. In 1952, IBM was actively recruiting employees from Harvard University, Tennessee State University, and West Virginia State University. So think about that. In 1952, IBM was actively going out to HBCUs recruiting employees. And I wanted to share with you something extremely important about leadership deciding how companies engage with HBCUs. Because in 1953, Thomas Watson Jr., that name might sound familiar of those who know IBM's history, because Thomas Watson Sr., one of our original CEOs. But in 1953, Thomas Watson Jr. issued a policy letter to every IBM employee stating, IBM will hire people based on their ability, regardless of race, color, or creed. This was a year before the Brown versus Board of Education decision was made. So this is how IBM has been engaged in HBCU and how it's been a continual process. But let's speed forward to the current. In 1965, IBM was hiring from 30 HBCUs. I said speed forward to the current because I was born in 1965. But let's speed forward again. Last year, LinkedIn recognized IBM as the company with the most HBCU employees who were graduates of HBCU institutions. So my familiarity is to be able to tell you I started with IBM as a computer systems engineer. When I graduated from West Virginia State University, immediately upon my graduation, I started with IBM and became an IBM systems engineer. I've been with IBM now 32 years, and over that time I have done roles ranging from systems engineering support to running IBM Chicago Financial Services. So when we talk about investments, it's critical we understand today, not only does IBM give away the resources to help us gain the educational skills in critical areas, but IBM has Startup with IBM. So all of your students can take advantage of IBM Startup Program. We've talked about the technologies, but we have to go one step further. When we have these technologies, are our students able to create businesses in these technology areas? This is important because you are not running into people who have 20 years experience in blockchain, because blockchain has not been a relevant technology for 20 years. When you have students who are able to go into blockchain and data science and artificial intelligence and quantum computing, they are then the ones who are creating startups that on a global basis, VCs are investing in those. And IBM's commitment to you is you have the ability for your students today to begin with us with Startup with IBM. And I encourage you to leverage that. We have the history, we recognize the value. We're doing it to be a good corporate citizen, but if you've listened to any of our CEOs, we're also doing it because it affects the bottom line. Your students become our employees, but more importantly, your students also become our customers.
Wow, thank you so much. Before we move to the next panelist, we have a really special honor, Representative Alma Adams of North Carolina, who has been really the brainchild of the Braintrust. Earlier we said she was on the Hill voting. She has made it here, so let us receive Representative Adams as she will come to the podium to make a few remarks. I think we can just keep this going until she gets to the stage.
Thank you all of my sisters in the house, and to all of the student cohorts. It is a privilege certainly to be here. I did cast my last vote for today. That's why we're here, and I certainly didn't want to miss that opportunity. But let me first of all, because we had a little oversight, I want to thank especially Anita B. For all of the steadfast support that you've given for 2 years, powered today's event, and we apologize for the logo placement, but your partnership matters, and we want you to know that and how much we appreciate you. But let me just say to all the panelists, I'm sorry I missed the presidents and chancellors this morning, but we are HBCU strong. I am delighted to not only be here, but to have you here, because nothing could be finer than to be in this room with all of the finest HBCUs across this country. And when I say HB, you say CU. HB. CU. All right. Yeah, that way we account for all of the HBCUs. But a special shout out to North Carolina A&T State University that gave me my start, that lifted me up. And to all of my Bennett Bells and my Johnson C. Smith Golden Bears, my goodness, I'm messing up. To Johnson C. Smith for all of the work that we do in Charlotte. But I do bring you greetings from the 12th District, from the bipartisan HBCU Caucus. We are over 90 members strong. We are bicameral, and our focus is on HBCUs, making sure that we elevate the presence, making sure that we inform and educate members of Congress, our staff, and making sure that we pass bipartisan, meaningful legislation. We're working right now to try to make sure that the money does not go away. We've got the Futures Act out here. Our funds are critically needed for our schools. So if you run into any legislators today, any members of Congress, you tell them that the HBC Future lies in the Futures Act, and we need to make sure that that money remains and continues for the next 2 years. It's going to run out September 30th, so we want to make sure that we drum that along. But let me thank my staff, Rhonda Fox, and I'll say the Fox team, for putting all of this together. I didn't want to interrupt this panel, but I just really thank particularly these young students for being here because of the networking and the partnerships that you can make. That's what this is all about. This is the 3rd year for this Brain Trust, the 4th year for the bipartisan HBCU Caucus. It was an HBCU that took a poor black girl from the ghetto of Newark, New Jersey, and allowed me now to walk the halls of Congress and to be able to graduate and to go on to get my PhD from The Ohio State University, only because of the North Carolina A&T, an HBCU that will do for you what they did for me. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you so much to Representative Adams for that, for those kind remarks. And now we will just pick up, and it really segues so well into Joe Briggs, Counsel for NFLPA, the Players Association. For many people of color, due to misrepresentation in the media, young black individuals receive only a few career opportunities and pathways to succeed in wealth, and that's sports and entertainment. The NFLPA is taking some interesting steps to engage players and young people in these sectors. Could you tell us a little more about their Accelerator that helps to support athletes interested in scholarships, entrepreneurs, and what led the NFLPA to create the first athlete-driven accelerator?
Cool. So first, we're here for HBCUs, right? As a graduate of Florida A&M University in the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, I know that that's a very important topic for us to talk about. So let's break down the numbers. On each NFL team, there's an average of 1 player on a starting roster that's an HBCU graduate. There are 32 players that made teams this NFL season that came from historically black colleges and universities that are playing in the National Football now. That's something that deserves your applause. In addition to that, out of the almost 300 people in the Professional Football Hall of Fame, a full 10% of those folks are HBCU graduates. That also deserves your applause. And the reason why those things deserve your applause is because out of these very small and humble beginnings from these HBCU athletic departments that we've heard people talk down about for years and years because they've been underfunded by the state governments that should have been doing more than they did, these young men have found a way to not only become the best of the best of the best at their sport, their chosen profession, but they've also gone on to become even elite amongst that group of individuals. That's something that's reflective of the people that I met while I was at Florida A&M University, like Mr. James Harris in the back from Amazon. That's something that I believe we all need to look for in the students that graduate from HBCUs and the way that they go on to do great things in the environment thereafter. But for the NFL players that I work for as counsel, they decided to start the One Team Collective because they thought it'd be an interesting mix if athletes used their ability to gather social and community awareness and put it behind products that they also believed in, put it behind companies that they also believed in, and also use the same thing that they were using to be influencers in other space to help those small companies grow to become big companies that they could believe in and that can go back and support their communities through giving scholarships and giving opportunities to people that look like them. What you may not know about many athletes is that though they have full scholarships when they go to college, many of them are not able to fully realize those scholarships. What do I mean by that? Many kids show up on college campuses like I did. They want to be engineers or they want to be computer science majors, but they also have to play athletics. That's the way they pay to go to college. But when they talk to their coach about the schedule that they want to have, there's a conflict between that afternoon computer lab and that afternoon football practice. And which one do you think is going to win out? So, as a result of that, they realize very quickly in their football career that they have to look for other ways to get into this space. Many of them don't lose that love that they have for innovation, They don't lose that love that they had for entrepreneurship. And in fact, they find other ways to channel that. And they use the earnings from their career to make sure that once their career is over, or even for some, while they're in their career, they use that capital to invest in other ventures so that they can continue to grow not only their personal wealth, but also the communities that they believe in. So that's one of the reasons why our players brought to us the idea of the One Team Collective, how we can use their social influence and also some of the capital to make these companies that come from neighborhoods like the neighborhoods that they come from grow to become great and also be able to support those communities just like they always have. What we've seen is not only the One Team Collective go forth and hand out not only opportunities for companies that perhaps wouldn't have the opportunity to be in that space without a One Team Collective. We've also seen players converting from having just football camps in the summertime, which is what everyone in their circles used to push them to do, to now also having tech camps in the summertime, to also having STEM camps in the summertime, to also supporting STEM programs throughout the year with not only their ability to be there, but their ability to bring people that want to sponsor them to the table as well. So that's why we have the One Team Collective.
Just to put a finer point on
Please.
that, the powerful aspect of what he just said was when you look at folks in the tech space and in the venture capital space, they want to gravitate towards athletes, whatever they're doing. And here are athletes actually influencing some of the biggest venture capital firms in Silicon Valley to actually take the initiative and get involved in the community. And so you try it every different way you can, but that's one reason why we wanted to get involved with this, because of the power of athletes and their voice. And you see this now with athletes investing in venture firms, becoming general partners in funds, and actually trying to invest in those startups and that activity. So,
and a great part of that is that many folks, many of the students that are here from HBCUs and many people that have connections to HBCUs, they go back into their communities and they start coaching at the youth athletic level. And they start inspiring these young people to be whatever they want to be when they grow up. Those kids never forget that. When they become professional athletes working with me, they still remember that. So when they go out and they talk to people like Intel and BlackRock, who's another one of the advisors to the One Team Collective, they take these people out of spaces that they had previously, into spaces they had previously not thought about for innovation, because they saw their grandmothers who were mowing the lawn and also fixing the lawnmower and had a great idea how she could start her own lawnmower company, not have the capital to actually do that. That's one of the reasons why they want to become NFL players, not just to buy mom a house anymore. They want to buy mom a company. They want to buy mom and the family a venture that'll live on forever.
Wow, those are so important, and we appreciate that so much. This next question will go to every person on the panel, and I'll make a quick plug even for T-Mobile that's doing a Changemaker program that's focused on high school students and their entrepreneurship and innovation, and doing scholarships to those and creating winners through a contest of the top ideas that come out of that. So for each of you, K through 12 is important. It's really where people get the foundation of what they're going to need to succeed in any school. So would you talk about the importance of these investments at those early years, which sometimes we don't think about? You want to start with this?
Yes, happy to start. So it is so crucial. I mean, this is where dreams are formed. If each one of us thinks back to the time when we were 10, 11, 12 years old and what we wanted to be when we grew up, those ideas were formed then, and that's why it's so important to have programs in schools that are going to really expand the universe of what children consider. One of the programs that we've been working with, at least in the New York office for SAP, is a program called Build, which goes into high schools in under-resourced communities. And the whole idea is to teach students, these are high schoolers, at the 9th grade, how to start their own companies. And so we give them, in teams of 4 to 5, the ability to come up with an idea. We give them seed money of $200 to start ideas, and they've been fantastic ideas, from a cookie logo company, which actually 6 years on from the starting team, it's still going on, and so there have been students year after year continuing the business, to other ones that have been doing things like, let's have a beach bag turn into a tote, like ideas that they see around them, problems that they see. And it just goes to show how much you can do with collaboration, with teamwork, and we would love to be able to infuse more technology into it so that they can see it. But This is just an example of at least like a program that I really love being a part of.
Perfect. Dr. Cephas.
Yeah, so again, K through 12 is very important. Early exposure is the key. Equity for all is the key. When you grow up in communities, similar to my communities and others, where you don't have that person in the community who's saying, hey, this is an option for you, like this is really something you could do, then you really don't think that you can do it. Like, how can you be what you can't see? So that's why it's really important for people like us to go back into those communities of those underrepresented and to make sure they know that this is an option, this is a path for you. Everybody doesn't have to own a barbershop or beauty salon or go into sports. That's not your only way out. And then we also want to sow into them, once you do, quote unquote, make it out, what are you doing to give back to change that situation for somebody who comes after you? Like, you have just as much responsibility to do that. And so that's why, I'm a part of my nonprofit, the Bean Path, Amazon. I already talked about the Future Engineer program, and there's a lot of other resources out there. But again, early exposure is the key.
Thank you. Belinda?
One of the things that IBM has tried to do over our 108-year history is how do we share the wealth with those who are less fortunate? So if you look at our corporate responsibility report, you'll say, that's great for what you're doing in other countries, but what are you doing here? And recently, within the last several months, we created IBM.org. So we have a tremendous amount of resources that IBMers use to take back to their community to teach students about not just technology, but business. And we've opened it up to individuals in the community to use those same resources. So this is how you're able to teach someone who's in 5th grade how businesses work. And I'll tell you, I've had this conversation with students in the 5th grade about money. And most people say, well, it's really hard for them to understand at that point in time the importance of math. So here's the example I gave these 5th grade students. I asked how many of them enjoyed math. 1/3 of the hands went up. I asked how many of them did not enjoy math. 2/3 of the hands went up. So I said to those 2/3, look at the other 1/3. They need to become your good friends. And I said, I'm going to give you $1, young lady. But of that $1, I'm going to share with you the fact that I'm going to keep part of it. So we're partners here, so I'm going to give you 50% because you're my partner, correct? Here's a dime. I said, that's why you like math. Because then you can figure out when somebody's taken advantage of you. In that scenario, it was obvious that I was not giving you 50% in this partnership. I was cheating you, and I was only giving you 10%. So our kids will like math when you make it something that they care about. And these are the types of programs we're offering so that when we're talking in our communities, it's at a level of engagement that they appreciate. My son and my daughter, they did not get an allowance past the age of 16. Past the age of 16, my son has had to go out and work, and his boss says he hustles. He takes that extra opportunity to get money. That's important because he has an investment account for money that he earned. Not money that I gave him, but money he put blood, sweat, and tears into creating. So he knows when he is getting the right returns on his investment, because now he's incented to do the research to make sure he's getting the best bang for his buck. So I share that with you because we are investing in our communities around us, being able to use the tools that make for effective IBMers, so we're good corporate citizens. But to the gentleman's example here, not only do we want our young men and women when they're in sports to be very good at investing their funds, we want every young man and woman to be exceptionally good in managing their finances and being the VCs of the future. Because when they're personally vested in their money, they're going to pay attention to it. And that's how we ensure our communities thrive, because they recognize the value they're bringing to the community, and the community recognizes the value they're bringing to that student.
I'd say at Intel, I characterize it in terms of time, talent, and money. So we have roughly 107,000 employees, and there are things that we do as a company, and there are things that we do to empower our employees to do a variety of things in their community. So a few programs that we do as a company are we promote girls in STEM. So we work closely with the State Department and the UN to do things domestically and internationally to really promote STEM education for girls. We think that globally what we found is that when you educate girls and young women, the economic throughput through the family to their community is much higher. So we doubled down on that initiative several years ago, and that's paid dividends. Another area is in terms of, I call it, it's the Intel Employee Service Corps. It's our version of the Peace Corps. So we will pay for our employees to step out of their day job and go 12 at a time and parachute them into Puerto Rico after the hurricane to do inside wiring for schools, to go into a community center and teach STEM education, next generation fabrication with 3D printing and just hands-on tinkering skills to really promote and introduce young adults to all things STEM. We've had a program called Intel Teach and Intel Engage, which has provided downloadable curriculum for teachers that they could use to supplement in the classrooms because we saw that there was a gap there. Some of the bigger ticket initiatives that we've done have been the Intel Engineering Science Fair, which is it's a global fair, but it's really fascinating when you get high school students from all around the world in the United States competing on really deep technology science projects, and you have Nobel laureates there grading their work. So I think I can speak for a lot of us at Intel where that's kind of the personally gratifying things that we can do, the company supports, because we realize that the skills of tomorrow in this fourth industrial revolution really are going to require not only technology skills, but problem-solving skills, the ability to work in teams, to practice critical thinking. And so those are the types of initiatives that we try to put in place even at the K through 12 level.
Thank you. And while Joe's getting ready to be the final answer on that one, we're going to open up for Q&A. So what we'd like to do to make this go quickly is there will be a microphone at this front lectern, and so come on up and get queued up while you're answering that K through 12 question.
So what NFL players have tried to do on the K through 12 level and the Players Association, we not only partner with about 6 different organizations throughout the country on how we support communities around the country directly through direct service, but also, as I mentioned earlier, a number of players have gone back to their communities and we've set up STEM camps and STEM camp processes that they can use the NFL Players Association resources through not only our sponsors, but also the people that have sponsorship with NFL teams. We work with the player directors of community engagement on the NFL teams to help these players go deeper into the community to make sure that they're learning not only about the game of football, but also about the other ancillary things that benefit football, the front office things, the statistics, and use those things as teaching aids, much like the example that was given about $1 to a dime. We also have camps and workshops and workbooks that we can share with the K through 12 level to talk about how you analyze statistics, how you analyze what happened during a game, how you analyze those things as a part of a construct of the bigger industry, and how much that industry feeds into other ancillary industries, how that feeds into the entertainment world through Entertainment Sports Programming Network, otherwise known as ESPN, and how much money they're making off of those things as well. Look, our guys love tech, right? Not only because they love the things that go on around them, but they also have a very deep interest in the people coming after them, having a better control of the sport that they're participating in, and they want them all to be better. So that's one of the reasons why we continue to give back in that space as well.
Thank you so much. We're probably only going to have enough time for 2 or 3 questions, so please go ahead and direct it to the one person you'd like to answer.
I didn't prepare for an actual person, but sorry, it's a little bit of a general question, to be honest. My name is Brianna Barnett. I'm a senior finance major at Prairie View A&M University. I also serve as a community development chair in our innovation and entrepreneurship program, and I'm an HBCU VC fellow. At this time, we're helping to put on events to engage with students and teach them about innovation technology. And one of the largest problems we've run into is how do we catch up in 4 years of never have hearding of a startup, never have hearding of venture capital, to hopefully starting a venture by the time you're graduating and beyond. What would be some advice that y'all have to how do we activate these students to see beyond, let me get a stable job, get benefits, and retire?
Can I try?
Why don't you go ahead and...
So when I went to college, right, like I had never heard of these fancy terms, VC and investing and startup and all of that stuff. But I knew Mr. JD, who lived across the street, who had a candy shop that he ran out of his garage, right? So I think that the thing that can help accelerate the students' understanding of what some of these terms are is trying to find a common frame of reference that you can break it down to them on. There are many things that happen not only in their own neighborhoods, but probably in the media that they take in that show the very same things, but in a different frame, in a different way, and perhaps under different terminology. I would say to you, going out, finding some way to translate that could be something that not only helps Prairie View, but that you could spread throughout the other HBCUs as well to kind of lessen that learning curve.
Yeah, and I would quickly just add, don't be afraid because you don't know things. When I went into a startup at CTO, again, they didn't teach us, a startup is an option. You either get your job or you go into academia. But don't be afraid of what you don't know, just do it. When we got into the startup, you learn things really fast. Like you'll make mistakes and you'll learn, okay, don't need to do that again. Let me go here, let me do that. You'll read books, you'll start listening to podcasts and talking to people, building your network like crazy. Our very first startup was acquired by Amazon. Like, what's the odds of that happening, right? And we didn't know anything. I'm trying to tell you, so it's okay. So yeah.
Thank you. Was a great question. And before we get to the next question, and we're moving fast and being flexible, appreciate that. We have Cedric Richmond in the House, Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And Morehouse, did I hear that? So let's receive him warmly. You'll leave up to the stage, or?
I'm going to sue Congresswoman Adams if I fall. Let me just say, first of all, I am a proud Morehouse graduate, and we will put our record of producing businessmen and startups and venture capital and all the things we do up against anybody. But it is clear that I graduated the wrong year from Morehouse College, because this was the year to graduate from Morehouse. So let me just give Congresswoman Adams her proper respect and due for making sure that the focus on HBCUs is robust, and she has taken it to a completely different level, because we understand the importance of HBCUs. And so we're going to do, as the CBC, everything we can to make sure that we support our institutions, that we have a strategic plan for long-term growth and all of those things that are necessary for all of these schools to flourish. But the other thing I will remind you is that elections have consequences. And when you lose an election, you actually lose the ability to govern and to enforce your will on the government. Although we do an amazing job of plussing up the money that we give to HBCUs, we put back in some appels, we've added a couple $100 million. All of that's nice and dandy, but just think what we could do if we had the majority in terms of the Senate and if we had the White House. So please take all of the information you can today. It is absolutely my honor to be chair of the foundation, which puts the ALC on, but we couldn't do it without you, and more importantly, we couldn't change our environments if it were not for the people in this room. And to the students, be every bit of the leader that you are right now. I want you to remember this, and I'm going to use a Morehouse man as an example. Dr. King didn't wait till he grew up to be a leader. He wrote his first op-ed about the fact that blacks were entitled to the same rights as whites when he was 17 years old at Morehouse College in Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Take your rightful place in leadership and don't let anybody hold you back or tell you to wait your turn. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Greetings, everyone. I am Jonathan Franklin, a fourth-year accounting student from FAMU, also a HBCU cohort as well. My question was, just going back and just hearing about what you guys are talking about, passion and giving back to, what you feel as if, you're passionate about. So basically, my question is, what are some practical ways that young venture capitalists can kind of get their feet wet within the industry to kind of understand some of the underlying issues that, young startup companies have? And then a follow-up question to that is, what are some of the issues that you guys see in those startup companies that, as young venture capitalists, we need to start understanding to kind of help those companies, to build our communities and build our family businesses back home?
you want to start maybe?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a start at that. My background is I was for many years in management consulting. I just gave advice. And after that, I founded 2 companies. And when I founded 2 companies before I joined SAP, one of the things that I realized was that so much of what you're doing, the whole learning by doing aspect is so critical. So even if you want to go down the VC path, it's so important to try to even on the side, to start something on your own, to see how hard it is, all the issues that you go through, the pain points. And also on the same path, offer yourself out just to give the advice to other founders who are just starting. It's amazing to see how many skills you have that you can bring to the table and to really just sit side by side to help them deal with it. Because if you are in the trenches together with founders, that's the best training possible.
Marcelo, I'm sorry, I saw his, please.
I'm going to follow up on that. The best thing that you can do is, in most of our communities today, there's incubators, there's startups that are the local government driven, and engage in that. You're not too young to engage. That's one thing in the African American community. We think we've got to hit a certain bar, but if you can engage, in Chicago it's 1871. Even in my local town, in Batavia, there's these startup institutions that bring you in and you can use the office space. What's way more valuable to you than the office space is listening to those other conversations going on around you and how they're dealing when somebody's saying, no, I'm not going to give any money, and their responses to that. And so this whole startup with IBM, we mentor. We provide those people who help you understand you need to sit in on someone's earnings call, I don't care who it is, and understand how they deal with difficult questions from investors, asking them what they're going to do next quarter to make sure revenues are coming in to hit the targets. And so that's advice I give to every student. Pick any company and start sitting in on the earnings call so you can understand how they ask and how they get money, how they deal with difficult situations, and how they make sure that the next quarter, when they have to come back and they're put on a hot spot, they are very comfortable because they know the world is listening. So you should be one of those people listening.
And Marcelino.
Quickly, search social media to find the local meetup, entrepreneurial meetup in your area. You will find other like-minded entrepreneurial individuals who are talking about startup activity, and that's a good way for you to connect and network.
Love real and tangible advice. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margot Ellis, and I'm a commissioner in San Francisco. Many of you know we attracted a lot of tech talent to, or at least tech companies to San Francisco. But what we didn't anticipate is that they wouldn't be hiring our folks. So we have a housing crisis and all kinds of other stuff because we gave a lot of tax incentives to bring people there. But we haven't figured out how to help our folks fit the profile to get the jobs. And so, that's one of the things that's keeping all of us in city government up at night. And I'm wondering if you have any advice about how we can help not just the youngsters, but the people who may need a bit of retooling. I heard folks talk about programs that they have in the community. How open is that? Is it something that we can invite people who are 30, 40, because there's a lot of people whose skills from the past are no longer relevant today. And so what can we do to partner with you to open to the community how to learn some of the things that it feels like maybe have targeted towards the young folks, but at least in San Francisco, one of our biggest problems is people whose skills are becoming less and less relevant.
I could just say one of the biggest, I would even say maybe even the biggest weed out problem in hiring people of color, African Americans, is the interview process. We need to do a better job at sourcing the people that don't look like the people that are already in there. Another thing we need to do is the interview process itself is slightly, could have some biases in it as well. A lot of it's based on whiteboard and coding interviews. I don't know anybody in my office who codes without a computer. So why are we interviewing people that way? And so there are several other things that come to light, but I would, if you want to take some advice, I would work on interviewing skills and prep. I think that's a huge one.
I love that question because one of the fundamental things that we as HBCUs can do to better position our kids and ourselves to get these jobs is have the skills in these job areas. And we are very adamant about working with HBCUs to not just give the current students the skills in data science, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, quantum computing, cloud computing, design thinking, and IoT. We want to work with the HBCUs to reskill the current population. And when you walk in and you have industry credentials in cybersecurity, people will listen to you. I tell you that from experience. So my degree is from West Virginia State University 30-some years ago. I am on Indiana Governor Holcomb's Cybersecurity Executive Council because my most recent credentials are in security intelligence. And so reskilling the current population through our HBCUs, and each time I've spoken, I've said, please utilize startups with IBM or IBM.org. With our HBCUs, we will train your faculty for free in those 8 areas I just listed. So when I'm saying get cybersecurity, we will train faculty for free with the requirement that they come back and for the price of a textbook, teach their population. So that includes their students as well as their alumni and for workforce development and executive training. And I challenge you to find 10 executives in your community that can define quantum computing. But if you can train 50 people in your community with quantum computing skills, in that interview, they can differentiate themselves and have a conversation with the business skills that we train in that quantum computing discussion to really distinguish themselves. So I can walk in wearing my t-shirt, but when I can explain quantum computing and how it affects financial industry and markets going forward, I think I got a pretty good shot at the table.
I can almost feel the classroom shuffle happening now. We want to shift to some each panelist doing a very brief closing remark, and then bring up Stephanie Rodriguez of Anita B., which is organizing and sponsoring this event. So Joe, why don't we start on that end with a final reflection on why this topic is so important.
So I'm going to start with answering a bit of that last question and then go into my final remarks. My dad is a pastor of church, Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles, California, right? We do workforce development at the church, and I still provide some counsel to him. One of the things that I do not see a lot of are people coming to the church to utilize the computers that we bought at the church to find a way to learn more about the future. And it's one of the things that I'm constantly on my 70-year-old dad about as well, making sure that he's learning about the future. And I think as a part of this conversation, HBCUs, football players, and all the folks here, what I think I hear these folks saying, and what I hope you hear me saying, is we have to prepare people where they are for the future that they're going to meet. I want to make sure that my football players are prepared to meet themselves in the future that they're going to run into head first. And I think that everything we do with the NFL Players Association is so that that transition is a bit smoother than it has been in the past. So I hope after you've heard us talk about some of the things that we've had to say here, that as a commissioner, as people that are HBCU grads or people that work at HBCUs or people that are involved in the HBC community, you go back to your communities, find out where your people are, and then find out how you can grab resources from folks like us to bring back to the community and help them with that transition to meet them where they are.
Thank you. Marcelino.
Yeah, just to also answer your question. So one of the ironic things is that in San Francisco, I would say there are companies there that are creating technologies that are going to disrupt a ton of jobs in San Francisco. So I would probably try to develop some kind of public-private partnership with your workforce development centers and companies like Salesforce and Twitter and Uber and Intel, because we can create curriculum and we can put it in those situations and meet the people where they are. They're already in that workforce development pipeline. They're looking for career pathways. There are wraparound services, bus fare, daycare, to put people in these positions where they can actually get a certificate, get a skill, and that's going to make them more attractive, I think, to those jobs that they'd be qualified for. Lastly, what I'll say is, Intel has a history of investing in startups that are founded or run by folks, black and brown, LGBTQ, veterans, Native Americans. It all started for us back in 2015. We had a $300 million diversity and inclusion initiative, which led to us creating a $125 million fund set aside for people of color. We set out to spend 5 years to meet that target. We actually met it in 2 years. but that initiative didn't stop. So all of our analysts, all of our investment professionals are incentivized to go out and invest in startups run by people of color. And so the work continues. It's not easy. By no means are we there, but 14% of our fund covers companies that are founded by people of color, and we continue to do that work.
Thank you.
One of the things I've tried to do every time I engage, whether it's with students or adults, and then this Saturday I'm going to engage with parents. I'm gathering up information here not to just help with my universities, but to share it with those parents. So every time we get information, we need to take a letter out of the book of the world around us. We talk a lot about the bad of these tools like Twitter and Facebook and others, but are we using it to get out the positive words? Like here's where you can go and get education and training on artificial intelligence and get an industry badge. That's the type of thing I put out on my Twitter account. I retweet the FBI jobs information. So when people hear me talk about, look at startups with IBM, go to IBM.org, take advantage of the IBM Academic Initiative, I share it across the globe. And the more we do that, the more we're going to make all this great content available so that not only is it in our organizations we're talking about here, but then we start having it in our churches. You probably guessed I'm heavily involved in my church. I'm a trustee. I do asset management and contracts for my church. That means they're getting advantage of this investment IBM is making. So when I talk about corporate responsibility, the more our kids see it, this is how then they start getting that mentorship, because now they have that person that's sitting beside them, helping them apply the skills that make them much more marketable. So when they help with the church website and someone talks about their experience, they then bring up the church website and they talk about what they did. Now they have that experience that helps them in the market. So I covered 3 areas that I hope you take back and share, because it's always about you need to take action once you hear something. Otherwise, it's a waste of your time. And we don't want to waste time. It's too precious.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so as a PhD applied scientist in artificial intelligence, I agree 100%. It's very, you don't see a lot of people like us, and it takes a lot more effort and time to hire people who look like us, and sometimes companies aren't willing to give you that time. But that's what it's going to take in order to grow that area and also provide additional skill sets to people, especially from HBCUs. I also know, at least back in 2013, when we started our startup, even in 2016 when we were acquired, there were not a lot of venture capitalists or funds or access to capital for people of color and women in particular, but now there are lots more of that. Arlen Hamilton, actually Jewel Burks has one called collab.capital, and so these people are targeting people from HBCUs, so take advantage of that. So,
yeah. I think just as a wrap up, just so echo what my co-panelists have said, but just to your point, you're highlighting an incredible problem, just thinking about workforce automation, how that's going to change the landscape. I mean, to all of the folks who, in the room who are on the younger side thinking about a venture to start, that is a venture to start. This is really about addressing pain points and really creating opportunities out of that. And you know, at SAP, because we're so enterprise focused, we're always looking for those types of solutions. We are here and at the ready to speak to as many entrepreneurs as possible. The future of work is a critical area that we really want to focus on, and are really just looking for innovations in this space and would love to partner on that.
All right, as we've said, this event was powered by Anita B. And to present closing remarks, Stephanie Rodriguez of Anita B. Please give her a round of applause as she approaches the mic.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So my name is Stephanie Rodriguez. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Engagement at AnitaB.org. We are a global nonprofit that works to advance equity for women in the tech sector. And one of our predominant pillars is pay equity for women in tech. And when we're talking about pay equity, that includes venture capital. And so I don't want to alarm you on your way out the door, but just thought it was important to make sure everybody knows that when it comes to tech venture capital specifically, Black women are only receiving 0.006% of venture capital funds. 1,000, like what is that? You know, that's a wildly low amount. And so we are so thrilled to be here supporting the HBCU Braintrust, but when we learned that our contributions could go to support HBCU VC, which is working to ensure campuses have the tools to train students, HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions both, we jumped at the bit. So for everyone who's in the room who wants to get maybe a flavor of Arlon Hamilton and what she has to offer in the venture capital world, we encourage you to tune in to our Pitch Her competition on October 2nd. This will be conducted at the Grace Hopper celebration, and we'll be Facebook live streaming that from 2 to 5. So you'll be able to see the winners of women-led tech startups competing for over $100,000 in venture capital funds. So we think that venture capital is the way to go. We are so thrilled to have a lot of our partners leading in this space, and we hope that you will join the HBCU House tomorrow to learn more about this important topic. So thanks, everyone.
All right, so I think we're closing now, and so just a final round of applause for all of the panelists. Belinda Kennedy, Vanessa Liu, Dr. Nashley Cephas, Joe Briggs, and Marcelino Ford Levine. And we thank, of course, Representative Adams, Rhonda Fox, Team Fox that's helped put this event on in excellence as always. So thank you very much. Oh, you're quite welcome. Have a wonderful afternoon.